Despicable Me 4. Released July 3rd, 2024. Directed by Chris Renaud and Patrick Delich. Written by Mike White and Ken Dorio. Starring Steve Carell, Kristen Wiig, and Will Ferrell. Rotten Tomatoes score, 53%. Metacritic, 50. IMDb, 6.3. Welcome back to Real Reviews like always. I am your host, Lee. Today we are talking about Despicable Me 4, the sixth movie in the franchise if you count the two Minions movies. I can't say that this is a movie that I was really looking forward to. These movies have been kind of average since the first one. None of the villains have been particularly interesting. But let's talk about it. As a film by Illumination, the animation quality is great. The acting also isn't bad. Steve Carell and Will Ferrell really get into their characters. No surprise for Carell as this is his fifth movie as this character. Probably the key place where this starts having issues is honestly the writing. They try to make the jokes work for both adults and children, and while the kid ones work great, the adult ones are really poorly implemented, and I can't think of a one that actually comes across as funny. The side character Poppy, played by Joey King, is almost completely pointless, and they try to use her as a misdirect. They have a baby Gru Jr., but none of the girls seem to have aged, which has always been an odd choice. They even separated the Minions out, so they are much less involved in the plot than prior movies. But let's get into the questions.
What new challenges or adversaries are introduced in this installment, and how do they influence Gru's character and decisions?
So Maxime starts off as a pretty acceptable, if a bit odd villain, motivated by being arrested by Gru at the opening of the movie. But then they later reveal the real reason Gru and Maxime don't get along, and it is pretty terrible. It didn't even get any of the kids in the audience to laugh.
What are the central moral dilemmas faced by the characters, and how are these resolved? Do these resolutions contribute to the characters' growth?
The only real notable evolution of characters is between Gru and Gru Jr. No other characters, including any of the new side characters, have anything that could be considered growth.
Reflecting on Despicable Me 4, as part of the larger franchise, what could be its potential impact on future installments? Does it set up new directions or conclude ongoing story arcs?
In almost every way, this movie feels like the end of the franchise, in terms of quality of writing, villain design, and how it wraps up.
What role do the Minions play in this installment? Do they have a more substantial role in the plot, or do they primarily provide comic relief?
So the Minions in many ways are written out of the movie. When they are included, it is almost 100% only for comic relief. Even though this movie is only about 90 minutes long, I often found myself getting bored. Ultimately, I didn't enjoy myself, but I do imagine it will do decent at the box office. In my scale, it got at 5 out of 8 or 6.25 out of 10. Obviously, I didn't really enjoy the movie, and I do acknowledge that this movie isn't really for me. While I have never hated any of the Despicable Me movies, I have never had the drive to watch them more than once, and also I am certainly not a child. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. I typically have at least 2 videos out per week, real reviews like this or AI reviews, depending on release schedules. Next week, at least, a real review of Fly Me to the Moon. Until next time,